Hey everyone, I'm Clive.
Hey, Louis here.
Akos.
And today we're going to be talking about a bunch of new features, so many that we can't fit them on the screen, and actually many more than 50 new features. Let's jump straight into a demo. This is Planoly, if you haven't seen it before, and we have a project which is a container of your requirements for what we'll talk about is the planning, the documents, the resources, the scope, which are tasks, and then contracting for your workflow.
For our new customers, those are three modules that we're showing now, but there are six modules. Three for the planning and another three for the management of the workflow.
Yep. And if you are using today, you'll know that you can create multiple documents in the same place. One of the cool things, it's about 7 times faster to create those documents. And as we are building these documents, we can start to have permissions around them. So managing who has access, which teams have access to certain documents. Maybe we want all teams to have, or maybe project managers only to have access to the BEP, and then the EIR, we want to just have a certain team have access. So we can start to define that, and you'll see the permissions on these as tabs for these documents.
Yeah, those permissions really help because they allow you to have internal documents, external documents that relate to the project. It really just opens the door to just have all your project documents in one area.
Absolutely. Yep. As you edit these in the cloud, we have obviously the undo and redo options, but we also now, if I was to make some changes, if I say hello in here, and then as I click out of this container of requirements, we will start to see a version history. And if I pull up this version history, we'll see my version. This is the edit that I've just made. I can see Akos also jumped in here. And Louis, if you can help us out and make some changes so I can see all of these versions and the history of who's making these changes coming through live. So if I go to Louis, I can see Louis has deleted a paragraph here. Akos, if you're making some changes, there we go. See, Akos has made some changes, and I can see that Akos has added another point in here as well. Very important point as well. Thank you, Akos.
I'm happy I could help.
Being able to manage this in one place as these packages of thought or units of thought is pretty cool. But some of the features that we've added is being able to categorize them much more clearly by, let's roll these ones up, and I can start to indent in even more detail. So actually, let me indent this one into here. And we can also indent the sections as well underneath each of these. And you can see the guys are updating the status on these sections so we can manage what information is shared and who has access to it, even inside of a single document that is restricted through permissions as well.
Yeah, one more thing talking about permissions, I think that's a really important one, is that we are also supporting the tendering workflow, supporting that by being able to invite now new teams, new team types, which would be prospective teams. And those prospective teams are very limited of what they can access and see in the application. You can have multiple prospective teams and invite them to the same document, let's say your same EIR, exchange information requirements, and then without having to send out anything, you would be able to get the same answers or the answers in the same structure back on your EIR, and then easy to decide who you want to work with and then elevate that team to become a project team.
Yep, absolutely. So the tendering workflow, we create a prospective team in the dashboard. And then when we access the list of teams in the manage button, we could, if we wanted to, just assign this to a prospective team. And let's take a look at the exporting next. On the top right, we have a button to export. If we create a PDF, we might want to include things like a cover page, contents, etc. We also want to remove the administration burden from teams. So being able to let teams manage their own contact details and add the teams page rather than you managing it as a section inside of the contents, but being able to filter that as well. So you might want to just show certain teams on that. You might want to choose which documents out of, for example, the BEP and the EIR you want to print. You might even want to switch them around. So if you want to drag the order of these so that they print in that order, and maybe you want to filter just for certain things, maybe just the published content.
Yeah, so all these updates give you full flexibility as far as what you want to print, whether it's a draft, whether it's a full contract document. It gives you that level of flexibility inside of the app.
I'm going to drag and drop another document that will be attached to the end of that. It's some HVAC details, design requirements, and being able to permission this document before you create it. At the moment, it's set to managers only. And let me just hit create. So we create this document at the bottom here. The process to create these and export them is super quick. And we end up with a PDF that you can either download or open a link so that everyone has access to it externally as well.
And also, when we are talking about updates, we are not only talking about feature updates necessarily, but also the content is being developed in the same time. So now we started out from templates coming with the application. These were ISO 19650 templates in English, but we are working with volunteer teams all around the world, more than 200 teams, to release different language packages. As you can see, some of them are already made it in the application. I know that Romanian, Chinese, Vietnamese, Russian, Hungarian, so lots of other templates are coming. Probably I will share the link how to join those teams if you feel like, and if you want to join these translation teams.
So we've created a plan or a set of documents in the plan, restricted the access, having a set of hierarchies, going through a sharing, publishing, and commenting workflow, and understanding all the version history as we're going. Let's take a look and jump into some of the new features in the scope. So if I create a folder, you'll see the folder comes up here, and maybe we would want to add a group to that folder. And inside of that group, we would want to add an element and an item, just to show you how we would do that. Very quickly, we're creating a hierarchy, and that hierarchy is completely flexible and very easy for you to manage. If we're wanting to just edit the name in line, we can do that. Also being able to edit the codes as well, classification codes in line, and add them in line. So if we were to add, for example, an A at this top level, you can see it cascade down, and a O1 at this level and see it cascade down. So we can start to really quickly manage that classification structure. Obviously, we might be using a classification structure from out-of-the-box libraries. So whether that's OmniClass or Uniclass or Uniformat. So if we've got Uniclass, for example, we would see all of those codes and everything would be built in for us.
Yeah, it's pretty smart too. If you drag in from the element library, any of the content, it'll just pick it right up. Or if you drag an element or item outside of a folder into another folder, it'll pick up that coding structure automatically. Yep. Did we mention the differences between an element and an item here? I think.
So here, yeah, let's take previously it was about grouping all of the elements and grouping all of the items. Now we have the flexibility. If I just want to drag one of these as column foundations, I can drag that in. Again, the flexibility in the hierarchy. So you can see, let me close that again. On the left-hand side, if we drag into a group or drag just into a folder, we can see the guidelines down that left-hand side, the blue guidelines that show us where we're going to drop, and the blue drop zone to be able to understand where we're going to add this. And potentially, we might want to access the new document library. We've got a whole bunch of available documents in here. And an example, if we look for new features for search in here, so a drone survey, maybe we would like a drone survey, and being able to copy that across. So as we're creating this content and building these, we're building a hierarchy, very flexible hierarchy, adopting the coding structure that we have in our library and our templates, and managing that workflow.
Planoly is the BIM management platform, but there are so many things which are happening outside of modeling. That's something that we also can now manage and control here. So bringing in items, those would be things without 3D geometry. So we wouldn't want to necessarily define progression, define the appearance and all those geometrical details. But now we can also request them and track the completion of these items. So it's really important addition to the scope module.
Yep. And that aligns itself very well to ISO 19650 tasks. If we were to look at things like the assessment of need, and if I was to, let's bring in a task, by dragging one of these in, we can quickly create tasks with the checklists and more of a management task rather than a modeling task. The other thing that we can now do is edit even the default content and the libraries. So the geometry, it's up to you. You can manage this. You can use it from the library as default and also develop your own if you've got content that might be required.
Yeah, we've had customers with some unique requests, robotic equipment, things that you might not find in the default library, but you can essentially create your own template here. And once you've done it once, it's ready for you on your next project.
Yep. Adding milestones, just a click, very, very simple to do that. And if I want to rename, let me rename this one to be our 3D coordination milestone. And knowing that we match the milestone to the library of content, if we go for a previous project, and if I import something, maybe from the templates, this is all available in the templates as an example. So we've got BIM uses, and choosing the milestone, say I want to bring in my scope for 3D coordination inside of not the master information delivery plan, but the responsibility matrix for example, and then the structural content. If I drag now into my project, let's drag it up the top, all of our structural content, that again, you can see nice and quick to bring in that content. Now we start to see all of our tasks and they are mapped to the coordination milestone that we have. Mm-hmm. Tooltips for content, and for example, the description, clear representation of these, and just opening up one of these to show you how much has been brought in from that library and how quickly that has been brought in.
Talking about the grid and talking about the representation of information. So we saw the LOD numbers. Of course, that's something that you can specify which standard you want to follow, if you want to go with any kind of LOD scales, or if you want to follow the level of information need concept, which says that we should talk in plain languages. We can remove those LOD numbers and rather say what the geometrical requirements are and what is the reliability of a certain element. Of course, that's absolutely doable. And one great new thing which we heard a few times is now we are not only handling elements and groups on a group level from a geometrical perspective, but we can also go down on a single element level and request individual LOD for each and every element.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can see that Louis is jumping and adding some statuses to these activities as well, and we'll dig in there. But one of those really important tasks, as Akos mentioned, was being able to specify, and it's simple to see, but we much prefer the plain language as Akos was describing, but being able to adjust the representation requirements inside of the same group. So we have a multi-set of requirements inside of this one group. You might need just 2D representation for the reinforcement, but you might want 3D representation for the foundations. As you define scope, it's not just about defining it and going and doing it. There is an approval process. And if I open up one of these, let me open this concrete stair, and I can see automatically there are a set of approval steps that have been created. In the track module, you can track the status of these, or we can just simply select it in this modal here. And Louis has updated a couple of these so that we can now show you a few of these other features. If I wanted to now just filter for potentially a folder, I could filter just for the master information delivery plan, or a specific task information delivery plan, or a specific team's tasks, for example, or I might just want to see what's approved. And if I filter for just what's approved, I can then dig in and understand exactly in a much more clear, clean, and crisp way if I'm presenting this to a customer, or if I'm working with a team trying to get their buy-in, for example, the structural team here.
Yeah, those preferences are viewer preferences. Clive might be more focused on the approved scope. I could filter for the items that are ready for review, go in and comment, and not mention Akos or Clive or any other team member who's assigned to those tasks, and communicate my questions directly on that task, and essentially progress that task all in one area and not in separate platforms and emails or messaging systems.
Yep. The other part to this I should have done before we had the filters on is that sometimes we've got a long list of content. So if I was to open all of this content up, and one of the new features is to be able to see it in a compact view. And that compact view allows us to roll it all up and see a lot more on the page at the same time, so that you're able to manage a lot more content at the same time. So that's a pretty cool way of visualizing a lot more of that content. And let me go back to just the approved content and also roll up to the elements.
Maybe a little bit more challenging to demo now when we are focusing on plan, scope, and contract. But when you were looking at unscoped items, that's opening up quite a number of opportunities going forward. I mean, what we can do now, we have a plan in place, eventually a scope grid in place when we start working on the project. But it might happen that we are missing something, forgetting something, and we would add that as we go. We would use the scheduling and tracking modules of the application as well and add tasks and activities as we go. But those will be captured as unscoped items as not being part of the original scope. You can capture these unscoped items and make sure that you make part of the template if it is relevant for the future project. Yeah, this is how it is going to be recognized now.
Louis, did you add any? No?
No.
Okay. I thought you were going to add some so that I could show
Sorry.
you.
Yeah, I can add one here.
No worries. So we've looked at how to create and how to manage and how to go through an approval process. Sometimes you end up with many milestones, and those milestones could be related to certain activities. They could be related to certain stages. Sometimes you might want to group these as well. So inside of the edit milestones modal, we can start to create groups. And if I create a group, we can then see, maybe I want to have, so we're now in group 2 over here. Maybe I want the 3D coordination milestone to be part of group 2, and then we see it being part of group 2. So being able to do this is really pretty simple. Let me remove that, just showing you how to do that. So now we've got milestones, grouping of those milestones to order them maybe in stages or phases or parts of the project. But let's now turn our attention back to the export. Once we've created our plan and scope, we again might want to create an export of that. Being able to export to an Excel file, Word is actually coming soon. Look out for that very soon as well. The Excel file could be all of your data that you might need for setting up your parameters in certain modeling tools. It might be for checking that if you're not using the Verify module, maybe for Celibri and other tools. So a really cool way of updating, exporting that content. But in the creating the PDFs, in addition to the plan, let's close that one up. The scope now has a set of new filters and new reports. The scope details report is really, really clean and crisp. And if we filter just for the structural team, because we know that we've got a lot of structural content, but some of that maybe we wanted to just filter for the approved content in the structural, and maybe we want to drag and drop. You've seen that before. And if I wanted to call this the scope and hit create, now we're going to create a PDF of just that scope. Let me open that up so that we can take a look at it. And it will have all of the nicely formatted details so that you can get an approval with a signature, and we'll show you that one as well. So now that we have created some plan documents and some scope, which is the task requirement, the sets of task requirements, and also we've created exports of that content for teams to use, we might want to actually get them on the hook for it. A nice thing about the contract module is that we have unlimited signatures. And as you saw before, you can drag and drop a document not even created inside of Planoly, and that can be signed as a document. But we can also, any of the documents that we've created as an export, if we want to get that signed, so for example, that scope that we've just created, I can then copy it across to the contracts, and that will create me a contract over here that I can then request approval on. There are a number of features in here ranging from locking and unlocking the document, commenting on it, and automatically statusing the document. But the main one, let's get some signatures and some approvals on this. So I'm going to send this out for approval on for our team. They would get an email and get notified. And when they click on that email, they would come in and they would start to fill in their signature or review the document and fill in the signature. I can see now this has been updated. So Akos is first to sign. Oh, Louis signed it as well. I'm the only one that's late in signing this. Did you use the manual or the? I'm going to use the draw my pretty signature and adopt and sign. So now that document has gone through all the statusing and it's automatically gone to the approval status, and I can open that document, signatures in the list for each of our teams. Akash, I like that. Very, very solid signature, cannot be replicated.
I use the little manual thing too.
Oh yeah. I love it. I love it. The next series, the 2 series that you see on here, the how to get your company ISO ready, and also the tips and tricks series. So take care. We will see you next time.
Good night.
See you. Bye.
Good evening.